All right, ready to rock and roll. So I was 9 years old when I wrote a song about loneliness. I remember distinctly sitting in an armchair in my parents' living room, looking out the window at the really dreary, rainy day that was outside, and really feeling very alone, despite the fact that I was surrounded by people. Now you may be thinking, why would a 9-year-old feel lonely? So I grew up in very rural New Brunswick and a family of 6. And my 3 siblings used to gang up on me and torment me and tease me and throw things at me. And they thought it was a really fun game, but I just felt like I was an outsider in my own family. Meanwhile, my mom was very critical, so much so that I don't have a single memory of her saying anything positive to me or about me in my entire childhood. So then I went off to school, and well, as you can see here, I wasn't exactly a looker, so I had these terrible horn-rimmed glasses and really bad secondhand clothes, and it looked like my mom had put a bowl on my head to cut my hair. And, I often got mistaken for a boy, so, long story short, I really didn't fit in very well at school either. I certainly wasn't part of the popular crowd. By the time I got to high school, the boys were teasing me that I had a more impressive mustache than them. So I'd had, many experience of just feeling like, I wasn't needed or wanted or understood, and I really kind of felt like the ugly duckling, that story that we were taught in childhood, and I secretly hoped that one day I'd discover I was the swan. Only at that point in my life, I definitely wasn't feeling very swan-like. So raise your hand if you've ever had that experience of not fitting in. Yeah, I see almost everyone's hands going up. And the interesting thing about this, it's funny because Christina talked about Elizabeth Gilbert earlier, and Elizabeth Gilbert says that it's actually a gift to have been given the opportunity to have been an outsider in your life. Because when you are an outsider, it forces you to go within, to look inside yourself for that internal power, which is really far more powerful than any power anyone outside of you can ever give you. And I agree with what she says, but I would also say that as human beings, we're wired for connection. We need to have people to witness our lives, to share experiences with, to support us when we go through difficult times. That's why in prison, solitary confinement is the worst punishment you can get. And it's why kids in orphanages, when they're not held, they fail to thrive. So today we're here to talk about the power and importance of community, and I'm going to share with you how to really embrace who you are, your full authenticity, how to find your tribe, and then how to lift each other up. So at the tender age of 17, I left home to go to university, and I decided to be super ultra independent and look after myself so I wouldn't have to, rely on anyone else and have anyone let me down again. And I discovered that I didn't fit in super well in university either, because while everybody else was out drinking and partying, I had my head down in my books, putting myself through university on scholarships and working part-time jobs, because my parents had 4 kids and they couldn't afford to put us all through university. So, and when I wasn't studying or wasn't working, I was taking the bus 2 hours back and forth every weekend to see my boyfriend. I'd met this amazing guy. I'd found my soulmate really early on when I was just shy of 20. And we had a really terrific relationship. And just as I was starting my master's degree, he proposed to me. And the very same month we got engaged, we found out he was dying of liver cancer. So we decided to get married anyway, and 6 weeks after our wedding, he died. So I kind of fell apart because I had found this person who I finally felt unconditionally loved by, but when he was gone, so did that sense of being lovable. So I kind of had to start all over from scratch. I decided to pick up the pieces and move to Ottawa to do a master's in journalism. And it was a really hard time in my life. I didn't realize that the combination of losing my spouse and moving 3,500 kilometers away from every single person I knew while doing a master's program that was extremely grueling would be a little bit too much. So I spiraled into a depression, And I got to a point to where I didn't want to get out of bed in the morning, and I was seriously considering dropping out of university. And thankfully, I found this really amazing counselor who helped me put my life back together and helped me develop a sense of self-esteem and from the inside out, you know, recognizing what my strengths were and validating myself instead of needing that from everyone else. So I graduated and I got a job and I made some new friends and I married the guy on my softball team and we had 2 kids. And to the outside world, it looked like I had it all. I had everything. Only this was around the time in my life where I really discovered the meaning and importance of embracing who you are and what authenticity really is, because I was living a shadow life. I was doing all the things my parents had said I needed to do to be happy, only I wasn't happy. I had a really, great government job that paid well, but I didn't feel like I was doing anything that mattered. And I had a stable, secure relationship, but there was no passion. There was no emotional connection there. I had a roommate, not a husband. So I decided to be brave and to jump off 2 cliffs at the same time and follow my heart, leaving my marriage at the same time that I started up a business with a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old in tow. I was really scared at that time, but I also felt more alive than I'd ever felt before, because I really felt that I was moving in the right direction and finally starting to become who I really was. And I got to a point to where I felt really good about myself. I could finally actually say that I loved myself. And I also had created this really great life for myself and a really great life for my kids. But I kept burning out because I kept trying to do everything on my own. I was at that point running 2 businesses. I had started a second business, my coaching business. I was looking after 2 children, running a house, flying back and forth from Ottawa to New Brunswick to care for my mom, who had been diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. And just the weight of so many responsibilities on these 2 little shoulders became a little bit too much. Meanwhile, there were times when I felt really lonely. During the holidays especially, I'd sit at the table with my 2 children and I love them dearly, but it kind of felt like something was missing. And I was just longing for that sense of connection with other people, with community, with finding who my people were. And that longing for connection is hardwired into every single one of us. During World War II, the psychologist John Bowlby, who you may have heard of, did some studies with kids who were orphaned by the war. And he discovered that our need for emotional connection is just as important to our survival as our need for food and water. So when these kids were provided for physically but not provided for emotionally, they didn't do very well. So if, like me, you grew up in a family that maybe wasn't as supportive and loving as you would have wished it would be, or you went to school or you went to your workplace and you kind of felt like you didn't fit in, I want to encourage you to not give up on finding your tribe, on finding people where you belong, where you fit in. Because maybe those people you started out with just weren't your people, and you need to keep looking to find your flock of swans. So that's what I did. In my mid-30s, really started looking to find my flock of swans. My children are upside down. So in my mid-30s, I started kind of creating the life I really wanted. I started at home with my kids and created the family life that I wished I had had growing up. And then I started branching out and making new friends, like my soccer team pictured here. I went to meetup events and I made an amazing group of friends, who a couple of them are here today, and started hosting Thanksgiving dinners and Christmas parties and just gathering people together who maybe didn't always have a place to go for the holidays, and gathering like-minded people together. So that was great, and I was starting to find people that I connected with. But I was feeling this calling, this urge to step out in a bigger way and share my gifts with the world. Because for much of my life, I've been hiding my gifts and hiding my strengths. Because every time I would show that I had an ability, the people around me would seem to be threatened by that and would seem jealous. And so I would put it away so I didn't make anybody feel insecure. And I realized that what I was doing was I was trying to get everyone to like me. Instead of just being who I was and letting the people who like me show up, the people who are meant to be in my life, and the people who aren't meant to be on my life can go their way and find their people. So I did start stepping out into the limelight a bit. I kind of got past my fear of public speaking. And I started attending networking events, like the WOW events that Carol runs. Meeting the world of women was a really great thing for me. And finding people who are really down to earth and not judging what I'm wearing and really supportive of each other. So that's the picture on the top left. And then I went to California on a business conference, and I met some really amazing people there. I met a group of holistic coaches and practitioners called Thrive. And finally, I didn't feel like the oddball anymore. These people were just as woo-woo, if not more so than me. In fact, some of them dressed as unicorns every day. So, you know, I like to call it the land of misfit toys, where everyone fits in. And then my business coach said to me, you know, if you don't fit in, lead. So I decided to start up a group of single women, a meetup group called Single Gals of Ottawa. And that's the people here in the bottom right. A terrific group of ladies as well. And through these groups of people, I discovered the benefits of being in a community, like sharing resources, everything from business templates to household goods and referrals, brainstorming ideas. You know, you can sit there trying to figure out a problem on your own, but when you get together with a group of people in a mastermind, like the solutions groups that Carol runs every month, it's amazing how, you know, your problem gets elevated and suddenly you're seeing all these solutions you didn't see before. Supporting each other. I mean, the reality is sometimes life is hard and sometimes tragedy strikes. We saw that recently with the tornadoes here in Ottawa, right? And it's amazing to see how a community can come together to support people who have lost everything. Encouraging each other. You know, when we're trying to step out of our comfort zone and try new things, it can sometimes be really hard to believe in ourselves. So when you're surrounded by people who believe in you while you're gaining that confidence, it can really, really help. And then when you have a success, having people who celebrate you, who are happy for you that things are going well, is so important too. And then sharing experiences, you know, trying new things with people, going to restaurants, going to learning events, going to retreats like the wonderful ones that Christina runs. It's really important to have people to share experiences with too. And one of the best aspects of being in a community is simply knowing you don't have to go through life alone. There are people out there who have a story just like yours, and they're looking as hard for you as you're looking for them. You know, I think birds and cyclists have had this figured out for a while, because they know that when you travel in a group, you can go faster and further than you ever could on your own. Geese actually fly 70% faster when they're in a group. So in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey talks about there being 3 levels of maturity in relationships. And as an empowerment coach, I see this both in people's personal relationships and also in society as a whole. So we all start out being dependent, right? We come into the world needing our parents to care for us, relying on them for food and for comfort. And in relationships, we often take that forward, and sometimes we start out our relationships being dependent on our partner. We particularly see that in our grandparents, sometimes our parents' generation, where you know, the guys would be the providers, the hunters, and the females would be the caregivers and the people who make the food. So, you know, because people had these roles that were defined, they relied on each other for their survival. But then once your survival needs are met, you tend to move into the next stage, into independence, which is kind of like the teenager who says, you know, I don't need my parents anymore. I'm going to go out in the world and do it on my own. And in relationships, this often happens in midlife and sometimes results in divorce unless the relationship is able to sustain both people being true individuals within that relationship. And as a society, well, I would say we've been in a stage of independence for arguably at least the last century. Certainly in North America, there's been a pretty strong push for independence for a long time now. And I think The only problem in North America is we tend to think of independence as being the pinnacle of life, only it's not. It's only a stage in our evolution. There's a third stage, and that's interdependence. That's when the teenager goes, hey, maybe my parents knew something after all, and it's kind of nice to come home and have people to share things with. And it's the stage where, as a society, we realize life is better shared, and we can go further together. So I would say that we've been stuck in stage 2 for a little bit too long, and that there's a growing restlessness to move into stage 3. I know I've felt this personally because I've gone to networking events a few different times, and wanting to find women to collaborate with, and finding that I was either being judged for the fact that I wasn't wearing Prada, or finding that women were competing with me. You know, and I'm not looking to compete with people. I'm looking to find people who understand that we can rise together, that as I shine my light, it gets easier for you to find your way, and as you shine your light, I can find my path too. I'm reminded of a story about not Elizabeth Gilbert, but about Gayle King, who, if you don't know who she is Oprah's best friend, also her editor-in-chief of her magazine and her production manager for her show. And this person was interviewing her and said to her, Gayle, aren't you getting tired of standing in Oprah's shadow? And Gayle just laughed and she said, oh my dear, I'm not standing in her shadow, I'm standing in her light. So my call to each of you today is to shine your light as bright as you can so people who are meant to be in your life can find you. And then when you find your tribe, you find that those people where you feel like you belong, you lift each other up so that together as a society we evolve into the conscious, loving, collaborative people that we're meant to be. You know, sometimes we look around ourselves and we see all this darkness, and there's this tendency to think we have to fight the darkness, but that's not the way to do it at all. What we need to do is shine our light brighter so that the shadows disappear. Thank you. So if I may, just before we do the Q&A, I just wanted to say that I know not everybody here is single, but you're certainly welcome in my tribe of single gals in the meetup group, Single Gals of Ottawa. You can find me on Facebook as Karen Strang Allen, and my website is karenstrangallen.com. I just wanted to tell you about a couple events that I have coming up. So first I have my Lemons to Lemonade workshop. It's a free workshop, 2 hours. The last live one this year is going to be in my home in Canada this coming Tuesday from 7 to 9. And then there's a webinar version of this on October 25th if you can't make it live. There's only a few seats left for the live one, so if you're interested in that, let me know. So I have some flyers for this at my booth, but just to give you a quick explanation of what it's about. Basically, we're going to be talking about the 5 biggest mistakes people make after a breakup, the 7 most common unhealthy relationship patterns, the 4 steps to go from a heartbreak to a breakthrough, and how to recognize when you've met your soulmate. So that's Lemons to Lemonade. Like I said, it's a free workshop. And then I have a 2-day transformational event called Heartbreak to Breakthrough. So this is on November 17th and 18th. It's at the Infinity Convention Center near the airport. And at this event, it's really an opportunity to change your love life destiny. If you find you've been just attracting the wrong people, the wrong partners, it's a chance to change those patterns, to heal your heart and ditch the emotional baggage that's been holding you back, to look at your patterns and change them and adopt a more powerful archetype. So we do some really fun transformational exercises together with other women who have gone through similar things as you. You'll also be hearing some inspirational stories from women who have been through this journey and come out the other side and created really great lives for themselves, and some of them have even found love. So you get all that, and you also get a binder full of great handouts. So the regular price for this event is $9.97, but I've decided to give my time for free and only charge for the cost of the venue. So the price on my website is $247. But I want to offer an extra incentive for anyone here today who really wants to do this. That today only, the price is $197 plus HST for 2 entire days. So basically you get 2 days for the price of 1 or 2 hours of coaching, depending on who you work with. So I invite you to join us. It's going to be a great weekend. Oh, and we're going to do a draw for a ticket for this as well. So my lovely assistant, Paula, oh, there she is. If you haven't had a chance to enter the draw, she'll go around and you just write your name and email down, and I'm going to do a draw for that after we're done the Q&A.